Whether you're somebody that follows a rigorous workout routine, maybe perform an intensive sport or activity, or you just want to have a long-lasting functional body, static stretching has been proven to help keep our body functional and have optimal range of motion throughout our muscles and joints, as well as reduce the amount of chances we have of injury, whether it be from an intensive activity or just going throughout our daily life. In this video, I'm going to share with you guys some of the best times to do static stretches to get the most bang for your buck out of them and to make sure we're not wasting time when it comes to performing them. Now, before we talk about those times, the first things I want to go over are the pros and cons of static stretching so we can better understand why these times are most ideal for us. So getting right into it, with our first biggest benefit of doing static stretches is to help lengthen our muscles back to the normal state or increase that range of motion if needed for our sport or activity. Now, the first example of this is, let's say we're someone that struggles to bend over and tie our shoes or pick something up off the floor. We want to make sure we prevent this from happening as long as we can throughout our life and not be dependent on someone else helping us to do these things. So doing static stretches, if we're someone that's really tight and wound up, can help lengthen those muscles and bring them back to a normal state, keeping our body functional. So for the next example, let's say you're a gymnast who needs to be able to do the splits. You need to be able to have excessive amounts of range of motion in certain muscle groups that most people don't have. So you would have to do static stretching to help lengthen that muscle and get to the ability to do a full split. Now, the next main benefit is to help reduce stiffness and pain we might have after we use a muscle group for a prolonged period of time. Now, let's say you're someone that loves to go on hikes, but after your hikes, you're not doing any type of stretching. The more hikes you do and the more muscle recruitment you need from your legs as you go up these mountains, the tighter and tighter they get after all those contractions, and they don't lengthen back out because you're not stretching them. So as time goes on and you do more and more hikes, the stiffer your legs will get, and the very next day after that hike, you'll realize it takes longer and longer for your body to loosen up and feel good as time goes on. And going off of that, the tighter our muscles get, the more our tendons will pull on our joints, and this is when we start to have pains in our shoulders, in our knees, in our ankles, because those muscles are really tight, pulling on the tendon, which is pulling on our joint. So you don't have to work out or do a sport to do static stretches afterwards. Any type of physical activity can benefit from static stretching afterwards. Now, the third main benefit I wanted to cover is that it helps increase blood flow if that area is restricted. So let's say I'm someone that sits in a car all day long as I drive to work, and then when I get to work, I sit all day long in a desk. So I'm in this position all day long and my chest is really compact. But let's say I follow a workout routine that requires me to do lots of push-ups and or bench press, and if my muscles are restricted and tight, it's not allowing as much blood flow in here. Now, this tends to reduce the amount of reps and weight I can do, as well as you'll get that deep burning feeling in your chest a lot sooner because new blood isn't coming in and flushing out all the byproduct from doing those exercises. Those are the three main benefits of static stretching I wanted to cover with you guys, but there are a lot more. Now, when it comes to the cons of static stretching, these typically happen if they are done prior to an exercise or physical activity or sport. Now, one of the main cons of static stretching is once you lengthen a muscle, it takes a lot more for your body to get that muscle to contract and makes it less responsive. So if you're doing a sport or you're doing an activity that's going to require your muscles to work for a long period of time, it's counterintuitive to have that muscle relax and have it do more work following it. So this is why you typically see people do dynamic stretches and warm-ups prior to the exercise and doing static stretches post-workout or post-exercise. The second main con is that it reduces the amount of power output. Again, now that we're in this relaxed muscular position, it takes a lot more for that muscle to contract quickly, which is what's needed in order to produce power, in order to be able to jump high or run fast. You need to be able to recruit that muscle instantly, and if that's now becoming harder and harder to do because that muscle is longer, you're going to have a harder time being able to be as explosive or as fast as you could have been if you didn't do static stretches prior to that exercise. So now, with that being said, going right into the first most beneficial time to do static stretches is post-exercise or post-workout. After your hard workout, after that sport you just did, after moving your friend's house, or after you did a long hike, doing static stretches can help lengthen those muscles again, get blood in there, help flush out byproducts, and keep that muscles healthy and at full length, so when you go to do that exercise the next time, they're not stiff and tight and restricting you as you do that next workout or that next activity. Now, the second best time for static stretches is before going to bed. Going back to that example, is if I'm someone that's driving and working all day in this tight position, then this is what's normal to me, this is what's most comfortable to me. If I go to sleep and I also fall asleep in this same exact position, now my body's super tight and it's gonna cause me to have more problems down the road. So if I do some static stretching before bed, it can help open up my body a little bit and help me get into a more ideal position when I'm sleeping, where my shoulders are back, my spine is at normal length, and my legs are extended out in front of me, versus being in a hunched over fetal type position. So if you're someone that notices you tend to wake up in a very compact position, I recommend doing static stretches prior to bed at least 3 to 4 times a week. The third time I recommend is the most beneficial time for static stretches is during long bouts of sedentary activities. So maybe you're a truck driver and you sit all day at work, or maybe you're a cashier and you stand all day. Breaking up those periods where you're being stagnant and not moving with some stretches can help increase blood flow to that area and help them from being tight and restricted and keep their full length the best you can. Now those are the 3 main times I always recommend to people. However, there is a 4th time that I recommend that's kind of controversial but has a certain benefit to certain types of people. So even with the cons that we covered from static stretching, I do recommend doing static stretching prior to an exercise or an activity for certain individuals that are newer and are lacking range of motion in certain areas. So as a trainer, if I see someone doing a bodyweight air squat their first day in the gym and it's very tight and constricted and they don't have good range of motion in their hips and their ankles, I'll let them do static stretches prior to that workout, because regardless, they're new. I'm not gonna have them go heavy, I'm not gonna have them do anything crazy or explosive or require a lot of exertion from their body. So even though it's gonna reduce the amount of power production and the amount of muscle recruitment they can do, it's not gonna have that big of an effect on them because they're not trying to lift very heavy loads. Now I only implement this if I think there's a chance of them injuring themselves due to the fact that they are so tight and restricted in certain areas and putting them in compromised positions. Otherwise, if I think they're just slightly stiff or tight in certain areas, I'll just have them do a full warm-up, do dynamic stretches prior, and let time happen where after a few weeks or a few months, they'll naturally get into that position that's most ideal. Alright you guys, and there you have it. Those are my 4 best times I recommend you do static stretches. If you're new here, my name is Hudson and my goal is to help you guys become more functional and fit. So if you enjoyed this video and want more just like it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Comment down below what you learned from today's video and what you'd like to see in the next video. And while you're down there, don't forget to check the description for discounts on my favorite fitness products as well as a code for our merch page. Thanks so much for watching you guys, and we'll see you in the next video.